Anyways, so this is Cohn again. Quote, when King turned to philosophy, it was Edgar S. Brightman's personalism that captivated him, causing him to adopt it as his own. Personalism's insistence, this is King right here, that only personality, finite and infinite, is ultimately real strengthened me to convictions, unquote, he wrote in his well-known essay, Pilgrimage to Nonviolence, unquote. Quote, it gave me a metaphysical and philosophical grounding for the idea of a personal God, and it gave me a metaphysical basis for the dignity and worth of human personality. Belief in the personal God and in the dignity and worth of human person has always been a deeply held conviction in the African American Christian community. Therefore, it was easy, almost natural, for King to embrace the philosophy of personalism. But he rejected Brightman's concept of the finite God as an explanation for the existence of evil. King's commitment of the faith of the Negro Church was too strong to allow him to embrace the limited God. As long as he was in graduate school, the question, quote, is the universe friendly, question mark, unquote, remained academic and was dealt with theoretically, that is, in the realm of ideas and not in life itself. It was a topic for intellectual debate in the seminar, classroom, or his philosophy club. The question did not acquire a practical and existential significance until he personally confronted the fear of death during the Montgomery bus boycott. And this question took on even greater significance when he had to preach the eulogies for many of his fallen black and white comrades in the civil rights movement. That comes from Cohn on page 30. So I guess we might ask, because King comes from the black sort of fundamentalistic Christian tradition, but note that does not mean the same thing as fundamentalism in white Christian traditions. But because he comes from that, like, how do we talk about his religious background? Is it fundamentalistic, or is it theological liberalism? Well, Cohn says, although King embraced Protestant liberalism as his theological perspective, he also acknowledged his debt to Reynold Niebuhr. Niebuhr's great contributions to contemporary philosophy and theology is that he has refuted the false optimism characteristic of a great segment of Protestant liberalism. King was particularly challenged by Niebuhr's critique of pacifism and his extraordinary insight into human nature, especially the behavior of nations and social groups, unquote. Niebuhr, King observed, quote, is keenly aware of the complexity of human motives and the relation between morality and power, unquote. King not only wrote several appreciative essays on Niebuhr in graduate school, but continued to apply his thinking to his work in the civil rights movement. Niebuhr was unquestionably the theologian who shaped King's ideas regarding sin and its relation to group power, unquote. Cohn, page 30. So here's another continuation of answering that question that I just posited. So King's reading of the social gospel, theologians, and the personalist philosophers gave him the intellectual structure to express his concern about justice and his optimism that justice could be achieved. To be sure, Martin's early encounters with racism caused him to have a deep resentment towards whites, and his reading of Niebuhr reminded him of, quote, the reality of sin on every level of man's existence, unquote. But neither his early resentment of whites nor Niebuhr's doctrine of sin could eliminate his deeply felt belief in the possibilities of humanity to solve social problems, particularly racism in America. King's study of the philosopher Hegel under the direction of Brightman, reading mainly the Phenomenology of Mind, as he said, quote, helped me to see that growth comes through struggle, unquote. Hegel provided King with a dialectical method that enabled him to resolve conflicts and ideas by moving from two opposites, thesis and antithesis, to a higher synthesis. Cohn, page 30. Cohn continues, but in regard to deepening King's optimism about the elimination of racism, the political philosophy of integrationism and the faith of the Black church were much more important than Hegel or any other white thinker, unquote. That's according to Cohn on page 30. I will say that Cohn is making a case for the Black community, and that is not necessarily, I'm not saying it's wrong, but that was not his only influence. He had a lot of educational influence that was blended together with that. Cohn makes basically a case for this by appealing to his tactics in graduate school. For example, Cohn discusses that he actually could have talked about race and racism in his papers, and that was obviously one of the most pressing issues, but based on his psychology, like what he was doing is more reflective of that Black protest integrationist tradition of trying to be meritorious on, theology or philosophy or whatever it is, and not by doing so on grounds of race or something of that nature, right? Anyways, so let's get to King's philosophy in love law and civil disobedience. So I'm just going to give you a little background about what's sort of happening in the context of this reading that you were supposed to do that's in your supplemental readings. So Dr. King's address is to the, quote, fellowship of the concerned. It was an interracial organization, and there were some loyal and reliable white liberals who were a part of this leadership. So one of those would have been Will Alexander, another one would have been Howard Odom, but it also had moderates that were part of the council, and that would have been Miss Jessie Daniel Ames. But nevertheless, all of these created a council for strategizing about, quote unquote, the race question, when it should have been about, why are we being assholes, basically, and why do we think we're superior? But, this is how things get framed in this time period.